he understands that people get dressed just a little bit, but they don't put on the whole armor of God. Come on. I've heard that word, but I haven't applied that word. I understand that prayer breaks things, but I don't pray all the time. Come on. He says, I need you to put on the whole armor of God. He starts out by saying, finally, my brother, and be strong in the Lord and in the powers of his might. He's telling you that you are about to go through something, but it's not going to be your power. It's not going to be your might that's going to bring you through that thing. You're going to have to be able to depend on the Lord to be able to get through this thing. He says, well, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against power, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. I want to say this right now. If you sit and you argue and you fall out and you're upset with somebody, you've just lost the battle, because the battle is never between you and flesh and blood. It's a spiritual thing. After you go through everything else and you've gotten dressed with everything else, your faith got to be in such a way that I know what it is that God has told me about this thing. I know that I'm standing in this fight, but God has already won it. I know that every time I open up my mouth to pray, God hears me. I know that this battle ends in victory. And so there's a spiritual fight that has been going on in a realm that you can't even see. But the only way that you can operate in that realm is by faith. And God says you got to get fully dressed if you want to be able to win this war. You got to be fully dressed if you want to be able to see what it is that I promise you. You got to be fully dressed if you want to go to the places of where I'm taking you. And understand this: the enemy uses people, places, and things, but that is not your fight. It is a spiritual fight. By faith. By faith. That's how you team up with God, by faith. And in order for you to activate your faith, you got to know what it is that God has said about a thing. What has God said about persecution? What has God said about health conditions? What did God say about despair? What did God say about anger? What did God say when people stab you in your back? You got to be able to stand on what it is that God has said about a thing. God says it's impossible to please me without faith. You can't see what it is that I'm doing without faith. You can't stand on my word without faith. Come on. You can't get fully dressed without faith, because the enemy comes in such a way. He'll use your mother. He'll use your children. He'll use your helpmate. He'll use that job. Whatever he got to use to keep you down. Whatever he got to use to keep you from believing. Whatever he got to use to keep you from fighting. But you got to stand up and say, I'm no longer going to just fight. I'm going to fight right by putting on the whole armor of God. Come on.